ADHD is one of the most common neurological disorders and also frequently goes undiagnosed, especially in adults. There are a lot of different signs of ADHD, and just because someone shows one or more of the signs doesn't necessarily mean that they have it. Having been recently diagnosed with ADHD myself, this is a topic that hits close to home. That said, today we'll be going over some of the lesser known things that happen to people with ADHD. Some you might have heard before, but I'm willing to bet you'll learn at least one new thing. Let's get into 11 different things people with ADHD might want you to know. Number 1. ADHD doesn't impact just school or work, it impacts every aspect of someone's life. This can include conversations with people, watching movies, or doing daily chores. In general, it makes it much more difficult to focus on anything, not just work or school. This leads us right into number 2. ADHD isn't the inability to concentrate, it's the inability to control what we concentrate on. For example, you might be talking to someone right in front of you and you know that you should be paying attention to what they're saying, but instead, your brain wants to focus exclusively on the sounds that the birds are making outside. Or it could be daydreaming in class or at work. It's not that people with ADHD can't concentrate on anything, it's that we can't choose where that focus goes. Number 3. Sometimes ADHD causes people to hyperfocus. When this happens, someone with ADHD blocks out almost everything else and gets a kind of tunnel vision or one-track mind attitude towards a given goal. In some situations, this can be helpful, but most of the time, the thing our brain chooses to hyperfocus on isn't that useful, and instead presents a difficulty. Number 4. Both children and adults can have ADHD. While it is becoming more widely known that adult ADHD is a thing, many people still believe that it's something you grow out of. While this can be true for some people, it isn't always the case. In fact, sometimes it can be the opposite, where ADHD symptoms don't appear until adulthood. Number 5. There are a lot of symptoms of ADHD. It looks different in everyone and depends on a lot of things, but most importantly, it depends on who the individual is. For this reason, ADHD presents differently in everybody, so it sometimes might not be so obvious someone is struggling with it. Number 6. Sometimes ADHD causes you to focus on everything at once. This might seem from the outside like focusing on nothing, but on the inside, it's much more chaotic. Your brain zips from one thing to the next without any control at all, and this makes it difficult to keep up with conversations or focus. Number 7. ADHD is more than the inability to focus. It impairs the brain's prefrontal cortex, which controls decision-making, task management, and, yes, the ability to focus. This means it has a wider impact on people's lives than some might think. Number 8. ADHD can cause people to blurt things out because they have difficulty filtering their thoughts. There's so much to concentrate on that the importance of words gets lost in the moment. Number 9. ADHD can impair emotional regulation. This makes emotions a much more difficult thing to control and makes them all the more intense as a consequence. This can have a big impact on interpersonal relationships for people with ADHD. Number 10. People with ADHD genuinely have a difficult time telling how long something will take. This inability to properly manage time is what causes people with ADHD to be late much more often than others, because time is genuinely a difficult thing to understand. Number 11. Sometimes people with ADHD can't handle a lot of stimuli at once. It's similar to when you turn down the music to focus on driving, but taken to the extreme. Some stimuli can cause people with ADHD to be completely unable to focus. That brings us to the end of today's video. If you have ADHD and have something else you'd like us to know, leave it in the comments, or if you have a friend with ADHD, what do you think they'd like us to know? Thanks for watching Mindfully. Subscribe for more psychology content. We'll see you next time.